We have trudged through the spice fields of Arrakis to bring you our review of Dune 2, or Tune, as we've been enjoying calling it. This is a non-spoiler review for you guys. I promise. We are not going to spoil. We will do a spoiler conversation probably live somewhere down the road when the film opens. We're pretty early on this. It doesn't open until March 1st. We wanted to get this out to you as fast as we possibly could. So you guys subscribe so you don't miss important nuggets like our Dune 2 review. Alonso, please tell us about it.
But I do see a way. There is a narrow way through.
The old gang is back. We're picking up right where Dune Part 1 leaves off. Paul Atreides and his mother, the last survivors of the massacre of House Atreides, have been adopted by the Fremen, and they are still learning the ways of the desert of Arrakis. Meanwhile, the Harkonnens have once again taken over mining of the spice, and the Fremen are doing everything they can to keep that from happening. Paul, who is now leading them in their sort of attacks on the spice gathering trade to attract the attention of the Emperor, who pops up in this movie for the first time. And so does the Emperor's daughter, who, like Paul's mother, has been raised by the Bene Gesserit. The Baron has decided that he is going to give Arrakis over to his beloved nephew, Fade Rotha, played by Elvis, because they couldn't get Sting. And he's a piece of work. And yeah, things are happening, and I don't know what constitutes a spoiler. These are based on books that a lot of people have read, but we have not. So there was stuff that was like, whoa, didn't see that coming.
And there's stuff that's not in the 1984 movie either.
For sure. Yes, exactly.
So
as you probably know by now, we're not done. This is at least the middle chapter. There's definitely a Dune 3 coming your way. We get a lot more worms in this movie, how they work and what they do, and how they can be controlled in certain ways, which is really cool because it allows for the desert sand to become water in how it's presented, the way it ripples, the way that it, sort of we have waves about and stuff, which is very cool. When we reviewed Dune Part 1, it was late 2021, right? And I was still not going back into theaters. And so I watched it on HBO Max, where it premiered day and date. And everybody in the comments was like, no, you didn't see it right. You got to. So I went last week and saw Dune Part 1 in IMAX the day before we saw Dune Part 2. So I was caught up on the story. I would suggest that if you are not a Frank Herbert fan, maybe you go read the wiki page to remind yourself of what happened in Dune Part 1, because they kind of throw you right back into it here. There's not a ton of exposition necessarily.
Yeah, there's no previously on Dune.
Exactly. And yes, seeing Dune Part 1 in IMAX, definitely the grandeur and the scope of it all hit harder. But I still have a lot of the same issues in terms of, like, these are characters that exist only in the way that they function in the plot. And they don't really have anything else going on. And there's more of that here. Like, everything you need to know about who these characters are is basically, where do they fit on the chessboard? That said, there's a lot happening on the chessboard. And so I was engaged in finding out, like, what was happening and why and to whom and who was maneuvering against whom. The politics really play up here, and especially how religion and politics go together, both in the way that the Bene Gesserit makes itself on the winning side, no matter what the winning side happens to be, to the idea of whether or not Paul is really a messiah, and how that possibility of him being the Kwisatz Haderach is used as a way for him to attain power in the film. And so there's a real critique going on here, I think, about religion and politics that I found fascinating and was certainly not used to seeing in a Hollywood movie. I loved looking at it, certainly. It is the same fairly monochromatic color palette. But at least this time, when we talked about Dune Part 1, we thought that like they should have just gone all the way and done it in black and white. And we get some black and white here that's really effective.
Startling, yes,
really,
for sure.
really well done. Anyway, I'm babbling now. I enjoyed this quite a bit. The performances, I think, are, as much as I find the characters sketchy, the actors are really trying to imbue these characters with much life as possible. I wish I could get more invested in the relationship between Paul and why am I blanking on her name?
Shawnee, Timothée Chalamet and Zendaya.
Yes, we spent the whole first movie with him dreaming about it happening, and that's kind of why they're together, as far as we know with these movies. There's never a moment where I understand what it is that they see in each other, apart from like, ooh, you're really good at desert,
His job is desert now.
Exactly.
So the thing that I think you felt with the first one, and I felt a little bit with the first one, was that there's that kind of the thing that happens a lot with the Denis Villeneuve films, which is that they are astonishing to look at and they are fully built out worlds, but there's maybe perhaps a clinical kind of cold nature to them when it comes to depth or emotion.
I mean, Arrival, I think, has some, that ending hits hard, but you're right. A lot of times it's a little too impassioned.
Right. And with the funny, walking out of this with you, I felt like I liked the first one better, and that had a lot to do with just the novelty of it. And like I had never seen some of these things in my entire life, and the sound design and the score and the costume design and what a fully realized and startling and often terrifying world this is. But the more I thought about Dune 2, I came to appreciate that differently as well, because there is an emotional depth to it that's missing in the world building of the initial installment. And there is more of a philosophical kind of meaty debate to chew on about, the kind of mercenary, cynical quality of religion. As you say, the Bene Gesserit do what they must to survive, and they align themselves with whoever they must to maintain that kind of mystical, overpowering sense of control over everybody. They're the string pullers, in the background for sure. So I appreciated that journey that Paul goes on, because in the beginning he's like, oh, I'm just one man. I'm a cog. I want to fight. That's all. And then you see him kind of get the feeling of power and the rush of it. And they don't spell this out, but they leave it as an interesting conversation for us to have afterward. Like, does he truly believe he is the Messiah by the end of this? Or is he just enjoying having everybody chant his name?
Or I think there's a third option. Does he see it as a means to an end?
Right. To control the masses.
Exactly.
To have things shake out the way he wants them to, right. The Greg Fraser is the DP again. And does incredible things in the desert, in the sand, as you say, with the texture of the sand changing is almost like public transportation. Or one less car with the sandworms, and that's kind of fascinating. But also in the tiny details, like in everything that like Florence Pugh wears, for example, as the Emperor's daughter, the details of the lighting and the sound design and the score. I said in our little out of the theater reaction that Hans Zimmer is Hans Zimmering the shit out of the score. And my goodness, like if ever there was a movie for you to go see where the sound design matters and the enormity of the screen matters, this is absolutely it. Splurge for the IMAX ticket. It's very long. I think it's longer than the first one. Is it not?
It might be, but it didn't feel long to me
didn't.
Just because I was so, again, like, while even if I wasn't feeling particularly empathetic with the characters, I was just, the plotting at this point really picked up for me. And I was more interested in seeing like how the maneuvering was going to go and who was going to sort of outwit or outfight or out survive, the other people. And obviously this is a decades old novel, but because it is about war and genocide and exploitation of resources, it is constantly sort of applicable to the state of the world. And so I think certainly in the current state of the world, there's a lot you can read into this movie. There's a lot you can glean from this movie that is a commentary about how political systems exist and thrive and attack each other in the way that they always do and probably always will.
Yeah, and just the primal cruelty on display, particularly in that black and white section where Austin Butler is terrifying.
Yeah.
I think if you didn't know that was Austin Butler, you wouldn't know that was Austin Butler. Because there's something going on with his voice that almost sounds like he's a Skarsgård.
He looks like Pennywise's cousin because he's like got this white head with no brows and no hair and yeah, just has that sort of that really intense thing.
Chiseled cheekbones.
Yeah. Like I had seen a poster at the Grove that was like that tipped off that it was him. But yeah, I would not necessarily have picked up on that had I walked in cold. I did think that the character played by Leia Seydoux was Mia Wasikowska. So,
Everyone's in this. But having said that, I think for the most part, they do a really good job. The script that Villeneuve wrote with Jon Spaihts, they do a good job of taking this massive ensemble cast and making every character matter and not just like, oh, this person shoved in there for a second for no good reason. Like people come back, people come and go, and it's all significant in this operatic sense.
Yeah, Rebecca Ferguson's arc as Paul's mother and sort of becoming is it Mother Superior? Is that what they call them?
Yeah.
And again, like it's how much of this is like I believe it, and how much of it is I need this to as a way to get what I want out of other things. The idea of a messianic prophecy that is fulfilled because of the person who wrote that prophecy in the first place,
and why.
Yeah. There's a lot happening here. And I was far more engaged this time with the film than I was with part one. And so, I am I eager to see part three? Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I would watch this again. Like there's so much happening, and I was just the way that the dominoes fell, I found really interesting.
Yeah, I absolutely would too. And I think it almost requires it because it is so dense and just to notice, to know what to look for the next time through. And we even mentioned like Timothée Chalamet is great in this. He becomes a man before our eyes in this. I think there's such a lanky kind of boyish quality that's made him so endearing for so long, but like he really bulks up and you believe that transformation in terms of the power that he exudes.
Yeah, like in watching part one again, like there's a part early on where he's wearing one of those sort of like kind of British naval type, uniforms with a little collar thing and the big floofy hair. And I'm like, oh my God, you're an anime character. and yeah, by the end of this one, he is convincingly like this sort of grizzled desert rat, like who is, this powerful warrior, and this having just seen him as Wonka. So like, he's got a lot going on, that kid.
This is not a musical.
No.
Sadly. There's so much I want to say. I want to go into details, but I don't want to give things away for you guys. So we'll do a live spoiler conversation somewhere down the road after it's come out. But
after it opens.
For now, Alonso, what is your number?
I say an 8.8. I think I found it just really intriguing, and I think that if you're already on the Dune train, you'll be thrilled about this. And even if like me, you were sort of had some qualms about part one, I think this one is an improvement.
Yeah, I will say a 9. Go see it. Get that popcorn bucket. Let us know how it goes, and keep an eye out for our live chat down the road.